Hey there, race fans. It's race day top 5 with me, Frank 5. The Roval, the ultimate wild card. The race that allows any unprecedented moments to change the outcome of the playoff grid in an elimination race. Yesterday, this race fan got to experience a wild ending in person with a walk-off win to guarantee one of those drivers that came in below the cutoff to get into the next round of the playoffs. Let's get into what happened yesterday. Number one, Christopher Bell. Ring the bell. He pulls off a walk-off win at yesterday's Bank of America Roval 400, beating Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, AJ Allmendinger, and Justin Haley for the win. His second win of the season, and that locks Christopher Bell into the round of 8. Christopher Bell's round of 12, not really been the best. It started out really sluggish with the crash at Texas Motor Speedway where he had 2 tire incidents, and the other one, the second one in particular, did him in, and he was not able to continue the rest of the race and found himself below the cutoff line. Then we go to Talladega, won the pole, but never really was a contender for the race. He was up front earlier on, and then he fell back later on and never got up there, and pretty much, just held on for, finishing the race, but not the best finish that he hoped for. So he came into this race in a must-win situation. He ran top 10 for the majority of the race and was like top 5 towards the end. It looked like it was not going to be enough because he was way too far back, and we were in a long green one in the end of the final stage. Then a caution for debris came out with 6 laps to go, changing the outcome of the entire race. And Adam Stevens took a gamble and brought Christopher Bell to pit road to change 4 tires, and they restarted 12. Then, when we went back green, chaos erupted on the racetrack, and somehow, someway, Christopher Bell found himself in second spot when the caution came out for one of those cars that was spinning on the racetrack and put Bell in a very solid position to win the race. And on the final restart, the second overtime restart, he got the best of Kevin Harvick and was able to vault himself into the lead and run away to win the Roval. Christopher Bell, of course, he's been known for being a good road course racer. He won the only Daytona road course race that we ran at the spring back in 2021. He's the second, actually, of 2 winners at the Daytona road course. But Christopher Bell did what he needed to do. He needed to come in and win this race. They got the job done, and their championship chances still remain alive, especially with the new round starting next weekend. But a big congrats to Christopher Bell and Adam Stevens. That was a gutsy call, and it ended up paying off to get them to victory circle. So, again, big congrats to Christopher Bell and the 20 team on their big walk-off win at the Roval yesterday. Number 2, road course veterans, dominant, but fall up short. The 3 guys you expect to run up front of these road courses and contending for wins include Chase Elliott, AJ Allmendinger, and Tyler Reddick. Well, they were all in contention for the win from the majority of the race yesterday. In Stage 2, it was pretty much the AJ Allmendinger-Tyler Reddick show, where they were both going back and forth for the lead early on. Then it became Allmendinger dominating. Then pit stops happened, and they found themselves back together with each other. And then when we had the final stage start, they had another contender behind them in Chase Elliott, the only driver who came into this race knowing that he was locked into the round of 8 with no concerns about what would happen to him regardless. But those 3 were battling for the win. We had a green flag pit stop in the middle of the final stage, which turned out to be the 3rd green flag pit stop run of the day, and pretty much was green for the most of the race until that caution came out with 6 to go. But it was Reddick and Allmendinger battling it out, and then Elliott pitted a lap before they both pitted, and he came out ahead of both of them. And Elliott was beginning to pull away from those guys, and it looked like Chase was going to finally get his first road course win of the season. He has not won a road course this year. It looked like he was going to until that debris caution came out. When the restart happened, both he and Allmendinger side by side into turn 1, giving each other no, advantage whatsoever. They were battling it out. Allmendinger got the better of it. Then he lost the lead briefly to Kevin Harvick. Ellie got to second. And then on the inside section coming up the hill, Ellie got bumped from behind by Reddick and spun out. And all he could do was muster a 20th place finish out of that. AJ Allmendinger finished 4th. Tyler Reddick, I think, finished inside the lower part of the top 10. Regardless, none of those 3 won the race yesterday, but they all were very, very strong. Again, Elliott was the only one of those guys that, no matter what happened, he had no worries about whether or not he would be eliminated or would just barely move on to the next round like what happened to him last year. He was able to make it because of the win at Talladega. It looked like he had the car to win when he had the lead late. Unfortunately, that debris caution, changed the entire outcome of the race, but you can't deny that those 3 cars were the best cars yesterday. If that caution had come out, one of them would have been in victory lane and it was going to be Ellie because he had a big lead on Allmendinger. But those 3 put on quite a show yesterday, being the dominant cars. I got a good feeling we'll see a lot of those 3 battling up for the road course wins next year, guaranteed. Number 3, Chase Briscoe barely gets that final spot into the next round, advancing into the next round. Chase Briscoe finished inside the top 10 in the 9th spot and was able to get into the final transfer spot to advance to the round of 8. Chase Briscoe ran top 10 most of the race, fell back when he decided to take stage points and fell in the lower part of the field, but could run in the top 10 for the most part. But late in the race, and the restart after that debris caution, he got spun out in the chicane in the back of the pack, and he was stuck back in the 24th spot. The caution came out, thankfully, for other guys spinning, so he came in and got some tires and came ripping through the field. And on the very last lap, he was able to get by 2 drivers, one of them being his teammate Cole Custer, and Briscoe was able to advance himself into the round of 8, beating out a pretty big name, which I'll get into in a little bit. But Briscoe made it in. Now, even though he made it in, his teammate is facing a little bit of heat right now, Cole Custer, because looking on what happened on video on the back straightaway into the chicane for the final time, Custer slowed down massively, holding back not just himself, but Austin Dillon, so Briscoe apparently could pass both of them. That might have been something that the 41 team planned to help Briscoe get those 2 spots that he needed to make it into the round of 8. NASCAR is still reviewing it. There's been no confirmation, but a possibility of a point penalty could be coming the 41 team's way. It's not looking good for the Image of Storehouse Racing, but one of their drivers in Chase Briscoe, still remaining in the playoffs, is able to make it to the round of 8. And I'll tell you what, folks, he won at Phoenix earlier this year. If he can get into that championship 4, I consider him a pretty big favorite because he runs well there. I mean, he won there. He's been really good in these playoffs, despite a couple of races where he had a little bit of bad luck. He's turned it around with a couple of good runs lately with the top 10 at Dega last week and a top 10 yesterday. So kudos to Chase Briscoe and that 14 team for a big day yesterday to get themselves into the next round. Number 4, Trackhouse falters with parts. Failures. A lot of failures for those guys. Basically, yesterday, both the drivers, Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez, were able to enter the race above the cutoff line, and looked like both of them were going to make it into the next round because of the solid points that they had, that they accumulated, not just through the first 2 races, but also in the race yesterday. Ross Chastain won stage number 2, despite having to start at the rear because of a backup car. They both got themselves in the top 10 late. Then with about 40-plus laps to go, Daniel Suarez started losing spots, and I'm like, his car must be handling really bad. Well, it was handling really bad because he lost all of his power steering, and you have to manhandle that car when you lose power steering. You pretty much are just fighting the steering wheel so hard, you're pretty much using up your arm muscles and all that. Long story short, Suarez finished 5 laps down at the 36th spot because of all that. It was really unfortunate, and that did unfortunately knock him out of the playoffs. Ross Chastain was, however, able to survive despite a mechanical failure with the right rear toe link breaking lately, and I could see the back end was like wobbling around in the right rear when he was passing by on the front stretch. It looked really bad, so they brought him to pit road, actually took him back to the garage, but he had enough points. The 10 points he accumulated with that bonus point winning stage number 2 really saved him from being eliminated. But a good job by the Trackhouse team of Chastain to fix that part and get him back out there, and getting those stage points, that stage win, really helped, because if he didn't accumulate that stage win, we might have been talking about both the Trackhouse cars being eliminated. But Chastain was able to carry on. Suarez, however, left on the outside looking in. And number 5, the 4 men that have been eliminated from the playoffs include Alex Bowman, who was not racing this weekend due to the concussion-like symptom. Daniel Suarez, as I mentioned, with the mechanical gremlins that hindered them lately with no power steering. Austin Cindric, who at one point was kind of close to making it in until he got spun in the backstretch chicane, knocked him out of it. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Kyle Larson, our defending Cup Series champion, got eliminated yesterday. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, saying Kyle Larson, the defending Cup champion, a guy I expected to make it to Phoenix to battle it out alongside more likely his teammate Chase Elliott and some other two drivers that have been consistent all year long. He's eliminated after this round. I would have never been able to believe that. He was in position. He had good points entering this race. He accumulated some stage points yesterday. He was kind of running in around the 12th position. It looked like it was enough for him to advance. But coming out of the intersection onto NASCAR Turn 1, he hit the wall with the right rear, and that damaged the toe length. So they had to bring it to pit road. They worked on it. They were able to get him back out there. But unfortunately, losing those laps in the process and the late charge by Briscoe were enough to knock out Kyle Larson. But he admitted post-race, we made a lot of mistakes to the team this year, and he said, I made a mistake in the race today, and it's on me. And I could hear in his voice, and based on what I was hearing about, the people that were interviewing him, that he was pretty dejected in his eyes. He was really upset. I mean, again, I would have never predicted Kyle Larson would be eliminated from the round of 12. Yeah, I know it's happened before when he was with Chip Ganassi Racing, but this is the defending Cup Series champion with Hendrick Motorsports. I would have never seen this coming. But I mean, the kind of mediocre finish they had at Dega last week, also with throwing the fact that he hit the wall yesterday, it eliminated him, and it's really unfortunate. But all they could do now is just try to go win more races like the other three and get ready for 2023. That's pretty much all you can do at the moment. But pretty big shocker to see Kyle Larson get eliminated. Yikes. So, the round of 12 is officially in the books, and the 8 men that advance onto the next round include Chase Elliott, the winner from Talladega, Christopher Bell, the winner from yesterday's Roval, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, who got added back to the playoffs earlier, above the cutoff earlier this week due to winning his appeal for the points penalty from Texas, and Chase Briscoe. Those are the 8 men that have advanced into the round of 8. And what was a relatively clean, quiet race early on yesterday turned into chaos at the very end because of that debris caution and set up some wild moments in the restart and regulation and the only overtime restart that we had. It was a wild one. I was happy to be there in person. I had a good time. Kind of, not as good as the previous few years' races, but I mean, the ending had a little bit of excitement and drama to it, and I was very entertained by what I saw at the very end of yesterday's race. I also, as I mentioned, I was in attendance of the race. I have footage of that race, and I should be uploading that later this week, my Cup experience from the Cup race, and I also went to the Xfinity Series race on Saturday. That should be uploaded as well later this week. But I had a wonderful time this weekend. Wonderful weather, great crowd for both races. It was just, it was awesome. I can't wait to go back to next year's race, I can tell you that. So now, the round of 12, as I said, it's in the books. Time to start a new round, the round of 8. Consists of tracks such as Las Vegas, Viva Las Vegas, Homestead Miami Speedway, and the Paperclip Martinsville Speedway. These 3 tracks, pretty challenging tracks, could determine which 4 drivers will advance to the Championship 4, and what other 4 are going to be left wondering, dang, what could we have done differently to be a part of the Championship 4? I cannot wait for this round to get started. It's going to be wild, and it's going to be pretty much take no prisoner, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it's elbows out. It's all tank for these final 3 races before we get to Phoenix. So who's going to make it in starting next week, and who's going to be in a hole by the time we get ready to go to Homestead? We'll find out. But I want to, again, thank Charlotte Motor Speedway for great hospitality for the fans yesterday. It was a great event, and I was happy to be a part of that race in person. I really enjoyed the Roval. So hope you all have a wonderful week. Subscribe, like, congrats once again to Christopher Bell and the 20 team on the win, and the 7 other drivers that advanced with him into the round of 8. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and let's go racing!